Yeah.
So we're officially starting.
For real. So we're just gonna have the teams like built straight from the jump.
Yeah.
All of the
that's
episode
totally
one,
that's totally not because we didn't write any of that. Don't worry about that because. I mean, pre-team interactions are nice, but we kind of already
we know a lot.
A little,
yeah. That's kind of what episode 0 is for because we already know a lot of these characters have already interacted with each other.
This is just a no nonsense. We're going into it.
Yeah, we did. Episode 1 is based off of team interactions. It's just that they're after the teams have been established instead of before. But we do have a full episode dedicated to that.
I mean, yeah. So To sate your curiosities, episode 1 is non-elimination.
Yes,
but we're gonna get into this. So Gwen and Cameron take notice that more than half of their team is composed of past antagonists.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, and then 4 like good guys.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna trust each other closely, but they're also not personally hostile towards any of them. Heather and Alejandro can't decide whether they want to make out freaky style or plot against each other. And they actually have a conversation with each other in which they bring that up. By now, most of the cast is aware of their tricks and that being conniving might not be the way to go this season. And they shelve the topic in lieu of another makeout sesh. Bowie takes notice of how dysfunctional Ale Heather is and tries to poke fun at it with Jake, who assumes he can relate because he is also the gay. This sets Jake off a little as he points out how wrong that sounds. Julia interrupts them and says all 3 of them should band together and bury the hatchet since they all came close to winning but didn't. Bowie agrees and nudges for Jake to join in, and Jake has the first confessional saying that like he agreed, but he also has literally no idea why they both singled him out. Like, why are they going for him? Lightning approaches Bowie, and Jake tells him that he's totally fine with them being gay and he'll support them. He also is under the impression that they're a couple as well.
I forgot about that. But yeah.
And that he'll support them, which confuses both of them a lot. Rhea sits alone since nobody really wants to give her the time of day. And then Fiore passes her by and flips her off, but that's about it. So Rhea contemplates if this was really the right decision to come back and compete again, but is distracted by Sean building a shelter. So she approaches him and asks what he's doing, and then he gives her the whole zombie lecture, which causes her to slowly back away, and then Rhea has a confessional saying, like, even with what I did to myself, that's social suicide.
Owen immediately tries to befriend as many teammates as possible. He's universally loved by everyone on his team right off the bat, especially, well, like, James and people, like Duncan, the people he knows. Zoe, Sky, and Priya bond over being the quote-unquote nice athletic girls in their respective seasons, and forge a bond purely on that. The bond starts to show cracks pretty fast, though. Priya keeps parading Caleb around like a trophy, bragging about his accomplishments, and someone expects the same out of Zoe for Mike. Zoe says that would probably make Mike uncomfortable, which confuses Priya, making her wonder why Zoe wouldn't be that proud of her boyfriend, considering that he's won a season. Zoe and Priya turn to Sky for input on the matter, but she ducks out, saying that her history with boys has proved she's better off without dealing with any of this. They eventually drop it after noticing Caleb and Mike being friendly with each other. Beth and Miriam take to each other well, surprisingly becoming friendly pretty quick. James just joins Wayne and the guys to talk about partying with Owen after the season is over, regardless of the outcome. Again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Duncan laments over his time in prison, believing that he spent enough time there. He's obviously still very bitter over the love triangle and how it ended, and stares daggers at Gwen before the team split up. So I mentioned this in episode 0, but it bears repeating.
Yes.
Duncan, they went from Duncan and Gwen, like, fucking each other in World Tour, to Gwen hating Duncan's guts and sucking up to his ex-girlfriend instead in All-Stars, and then laughing at him when he got arrested. And the only reason he got arrested in the first place was because of events that built up because he was trying to impress her. So he basically views everything that happened as Gwen's fault. So he's really mad at Gwen. Like, he hates Gwen.
Oh wait, no, here's some, like, stuff over here, yeah.
Okay. He's obviously still bitter over the love triangle and how it ended, and stares daggers at Gwen for the team split up. Yeah. Mike and Zoe approach their former teammate in an attempt to connect, but he shoos them off, irrationally angry. This challenge takes place deep in the woods of Tipiskaw. So part 1, like episodes 1 through 12, takes place in Tipiskaw, And then the second part is going to take place on the original island from
Wallenaqua.
Yeah,
because
Wallenaqua.
it's back somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They rebuilt
for the reboot, yeah.
Okay. So we have the first challenge. This challenge takes place deep in the woods of Tipiscot. The teams are split into 2 groups of 4 and 7. The group of 7 must enter the woods and escape through the other side. The group of 4 must also go into the woods, but collect segments of a totem pole, assemble it, and climb to collect a flag at the top of the starting line to win. Only one group or team has to actually complete either objective to win, but they cannot switch objectives once assigned to it. So it's not, they don't need the whole team, they just need one person, it sounds like. Oh no, wait, sorry, not one person. They need one group. So like either the group, there's 4 groups, 2 of them belong to each team. If like the group of 4 finishes their thing first, then they win. Wait, is that what we actually did, or do we need everybody?
I'm pretty sure, yeah. Only one group per team has to actually complete either objective, but to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
only one group, yeah.
Okay,
to actually
only
win.
one group, right? Okay, whichever team finishes their objective first wins the better sleeping quarters for the remainder of the team phase. The hosts clarify that not everyone on the team needs to be present to build the totem, but every team member must escape if they decide to do so. Okay, so I want to do separate tiers so that people can follow.
Yeah.
So just make The groups are decided randomly. The builders for the teams are Lightning, Bowie, Fiore. Wait, are these on one team? Yeah. Lightning, Bowie, Fiore, Rhea, and Jake. So they're 5 and 6, not 4 and 7. Whatever. And then.
Whoops.
Yeah, I'll retcon that. It's fine.
Yeah.
And then Priya, Miriam, Mike, Owen, and Sky for the Lions. The rest are runners. The builders for the snakes sort of all work separately and alone. Rhea tries to approach Jake, but he doesn't even let her try. He just, walks away. Fiore and Bowie are both playing more fairly, so even if they have opportunities to hide the other team's totem pieces, they don't. Yeah, because, again, they don't want to do that this early on in the game. It's, bad. So...
Exactly.
Yeah. Damn it, I lost my place. Okay, lightning is useful for carrying the pieces, but is otherwise a hindrance for finding them or bringing them back because, Evil Dread can't count to 7. Now he can count to 10, but that's as far as it goes. So he got a little bit better at counting.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Sean actually leads the runners pretty well through the woods since that's his territory. Cameron has a bit of trouble keeping up, but Gwen helps him out. The builders for the Lions actually cooperate and make it pretty far with their pieces, finding 3 out of 4 before the snakes even find 1. Zoe mostly leads the runners, and pretty much everyone is able to keep up and push through. Things are going pretty well for the Roaring Lions, with Zoe's team, until they lose Wayne, who gets himself stranded. But he does manage to find a nice log to sit on, which he doesn't realize is a snake totem piece. So then Lightning finds Wayne sitting on the log and asks him if he's seen one. And then Wayne is like, sorry, bro, but nah, I haven't seen it. And then Lightning's like, oh man, thanks anyway. And he has a confessional saying that Wayne is a pretty nice guy, and that if they both make the merge, that athletes should stick together. And that he'd never lie to him. Now, this might seem a little unusual because Lightning is he only makes room for himself. But you also, there was a confessional he had in Revenge of the Island where he said that, he's used to carrying his team members back home, but they know how to play the game. Unlike, this bunch of losers, referring to the Revenge cast. But Wayne is an athlete.
Yeah.
So Lightning views Wayne as, one of the guys who knows how to play the game. So, it's not like he views him as his equal, but he does kind of respect him in, a weird way. The runners for the snakes pass the Lions, but the builders for the Lions are further along in their totem. The Lions builders are more cooperative, and their runners are pretty physically strong. So, because we got Priya, Miriam, Mike, Sky, The snakes runners aren't as strong, mainly with, the Disventure Camp characters, I would say. But they are not missing a member. which is, unlike... Yeah, they do have the advantage of not missing a member, unlike the Roaring Lions with Wayne. The Lions actually complete their totem, but just as Priya reaches for the flag, all of the snakes reach the finish line on the other side at once, winning them luxurious cabins. So like we said, this is not an elimination challenge, this is a prize, this is a reward challenge. And the snakes win the luxurious cabins, and this makes Priya very mad.
Yeah, grr.
Grr. Alright, and with that, we can move on to episode 2.
So the Snakes of Wrath sleep soundly, knowing that they're off to a good start in comfortable beds and access to clean showers. The Roaring Lions sleep in their mid-cabins, but are still a little shaken morale-wise because of their first defeat. So soon after, the campers are all called to the challenge area again. The campers approach the challenge area, which is a junkyard full of salvage and machinery. Before the challenge begins, all campers are told that there is an immunity totem somewhere on the island, which ups the ante. Furthermore, there is half of an idol hidden somewhere else, but they're not told what its function is. They're only told that the other half will perhaps be a reward for a challenge later in the game. This stirs worry into the cast, but it's shaken off once the challenge is explained. So, the challenge consists of 2 phases. So the first phase, the teams must rifle through the junk and create a flying machine capable of taking off, holding the entire team, and firing weapons. And the second phase, they must engage in war and shoot each other down. To make it easier and fair, each are given a base, a functional engine, and steering equipment as a starter kit. So Cameron takes up the lead in designing what exactly his team will be building. Lightning actually sticks up for him and helps him direct the team out of a newfound respect for his fellow finalist. Cameron decides on a blimp with the most of the team acting as gunners to shoot the other team down. Caleb, being the most intelligent out of anyone on his team, arguably, decides on a giant plane, prioritizing speed and escapability. Priya fawns over Caleb and his leadership, somewhat rubbing it in. It was somewhat rubbing it in Zoe's and Sky's face, and even setting Mike off a little. Miriam butts in and puts a stop to it, and then in confessional jokingly says, "Maybe I was just a teensy bit right about the youth these days being immature." Then Mike would have a confessional observing how strange it felt to not have Chester come out in frustration. Like, he's starting to miss his personalities even more. Duncan is asked to help the team, but he outright refuses to work alongside Mal because he still believes that Mike is still there.
Yeah, because remember, Duncan wasn't there when Mal was defeated.
Most of the team is confused, but Mike clarifies that Mal is gone for good, and Duncan just goes, "Sure, dude, whatever." And in confessional says that he doesn't trust Mal as far as he could throw him, and then he considers that would be decently far and takes a note to find a better analogy.
Both teams finish their vehicles around the same time. Caleb presents what looks like a small commercial plane with a few guns to shoot junk and trash. Meanwhile, Cameron proudly exhibits a blimp equivalent of the fucking Death Star, which is manned by nearly the entire team on all sides. So, they have those little jingles that play when when something happens. So with Caleb's, they have the, and then for Cameron they have opulent epic music play for 2 seconds. Yeah, and it's So, as you can imagine, this is a huge problem for the Roaring Lions, because even when they got close to run and gun, there is no angle for them to safely do so, as the blimp is basically an impenetrable fortress, because Cameron built a fucking force field around it.
We're taking into account that this is a cartoon.
Yeah.
So,
as a last-ditch effort, they decide to use Owen himself as a cannonball. This is after they run out of ammo. They're basically all out of ideas. Half their ship has collapsed, and they just throw a Hail Mary, and the Hail Mary is Owen.
Yes.
And it works. The snakes fire frantically at the lion's plane, the snakes fire frantically at the lion's plane, but because all of their shit has been destroyed, they now weigh significantly less, so they're able to get away before they can do any more damage. The The Snakes of Wrath's blimp crashes to the ground because Owen hit, like, the sweet spot. It just went right through it, and it just deflates.
Yeah, like the oopsie spot.
Yeah. Owen was thrown with so much velocity, it just broke right through the force field, and just like... yeah, and just, like, destroyed it.
It's like Ralph Wiggum going through Piccolo.
Yeah. Yeah, so the blimp crashed to the ground, which gives the Lions the win. Yeah, so during their celebration, the whole team cheers for Owen, who in confessional celebrates for himself, saying this is the start of him really becoming a serious competitor. So this is something that I'm probably going to be saying a lot in this video, but this is this is first of many examples of, like, coming full circle, because in Island with the Dodgeball contest, Owen lost when he to Harold, who was the underdog. And now Owen is the underdog and won, and they basically treat him the same way as the Killer Bass did with Harold.
Yeah. So
voting time.
Yeah, when the vote. So Rhea knows she's in trouble purely because of her own personal beef, but she approaches Heather and Alejandro and sees at least 2 votes that she can use to maybe get Jake out. Fiore and Jake both vote for Rhea. Surprisingly, the rest of the team actually votes for Sean, with Sean voting for Cameron. As frustrating as Rhea is, and as much as they can possibly throw Cameron under the bus for the blimp idea, and as much of a threat as most of the team is already, they agree that they can't have Sean hold them back in the future with his zombie stuff, especially since he freaked out so often within the first 2 episodes. So Sean is out. It's like a 5-3-2-1 vote, which is pretty scattered. So here we can.
Yeah, we can go.
Yeah, so like Gwen. Okay, so whoever voted for Sean was Gwen, Cameron, Lightning, Bowie and Julia. Bowie and Julia,
yeah, which is 5.
They all voted Sean, so their votes counted. Heather, Alejandro, and Rhea voted Jake.
Yeah, so the reason that this happens is because all 3 of them are desperate for allies, because out of anyone here, they have the biggest targets on their back.
True.
Rhea more than the other 2, but even still, Heather and Alejandro are like, you know, we need someone as cutthroat as Rhea to have our back, because, like, we don't really trust anyone else. So yeah, that's kind of like how they come together there. They vote for Jake. Because they're just like, you know what, we'll go with Alejandro. Probably says something to Heather like, you know, we'll go with this for now so that Rhea will owe us one.
Yeah.
And then who else was the? Oh yeah, I think just Sean voted for Cameron.
Sean voted Cameron, yeah.
And then and Fiore voted for Rhea because of what she did to Alec. Okay, and so with that, Sean is our first boot.
Is out.
Yeah, crazy.
Episode 3. Episode 3.
Right.
So Rhea, groans about in confessional that she wasn't able to get Jake out, but isn't surprised because most of the team doesn't trust her already. So she clasps her hands and promises that his time is coming. Meanwhile, Jake approaches Gwen and Cameron, seeing them as the most friendly on his team. It's yeah.
Yeah, the only non-villains.
Yeah.
They're the only non-villains left.
He's hoping to make a better connection with them as well. He considers that Bowie also approached him, but sees that connection as superficial at best.
Yeah, he views him as a snake.
Yeah, Gwen and Cameron, which, ironic. So Gwen and Cameron agree to ally with him and also, genuinely want to be friends with him, too. So Jake confesses that he almost got eliminated last night, and he doesn't know how close the vote was. But he knows that some people are out to get him. And he knows one of them is Rhea, but he doesn't know about Heather gunning for him as well. So Bowie and Julia discuss the last elimination and decide to keep voting strategically and keep low profile so as to not get eliminated early. Fiore overhears this and tries to steer the conversation towards voting out Rhea next. But they shoot her down and instead want to leave her as a meat shield, similarly to Heather.
Yeah.
They're not easy to manipulate by any means, but they could be convinced still.
Yeah. Heather and Alejandro are, like, actively working with Rhea because I think they view their situation as, like, we need a third fiddle.
They're, like, desperate.
Bowie and Julia kind of have the same idea, but in a more passive sense. They don't want to work with Rhea, but they like the idea of having her on their team so that, the sweat is off their backs.
True, yeah. So Fiore's a little pissed that she was declined, but she keeps a level head and agrees to vote with them next time, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So the campers are called to the challenge area, the Woods of Tipiscal, once again. All of them are given 2 balloons tied to their backs and a dart gun, and they are told that each balloon has a surprise punishment inside for if and when they get shot, and that once their balloons are shot, they are out of the challenge, and the last one standing wins their team. So the teams frantically split off, with the Lions trying to stay together and the Snakes splitting into smaller groups. So Beth and Miriam split off. Are hunted down and taken out. So yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, we make the separate tiers again.
James ambushes Bowie, Julia, and Fiore, but he's taken out. And he takes Bowie down with him. So Jake is taken out by Priya, actually. Where is he? Yeah, taken out by... Yeah, okay. So Jake is taken out by Priya, Sky, and Caleb, who will put them together...
Yeah, you'll just have to put the teams back normally afterwards.
Yeah, we will.
That's fine.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
Yeah, he gets taken out by a triple threat.
Yeah, so Cameron convinces Lightning to guard him alongside Gwen, and Rhea is mostly left alone. And a confessional says that if she hides for the whole challenge, then she'll never get shot. Zoe, Wayne,
so Rhea's strategy is hide like a bitch.
Zoe, Wayne, Owen, and Mike meet up with Priya. And they meet up with Priya, Sky, and Caleb to assemble their entire team for a numbers advantage. And Duncan goes off alone instead. He wants to avoid Mal. So he hides in the trees and manages to take out Julia and Fiore, actually, that being seen. So there's that. Heather and Alejandro plan to take out Owen together, seeing as how he's the biggest target, literally, and the one directly responsible for their loss last challenge. So they run ahead, and they're not aware of the entire army that's waiting for them. So Owen rushes forward, firing away, but the two easily avoid him and take him out the second he splits off. So Owen's out. Priya, Sky, and Zoe all split off to chase down Alejandro, while Wayne, Caleb, and Mike hunt down Heather. Duncan gets the drop on Lightning, and the two duke it out one-on-one, but they're interrupted by Heather, who runs through their fight to escape the Lions and gets shot by both Lightning and Duncan. Duncan takes the opportunity to use the rest of the guys to gang up on Lightning, who is almost able to escape, but with a mix of Wayne's hockey juking and Mike's using Svetlana abilities, they corner him. Lightning smiles as he's taken down, and he points out that he took Mike with him. So there's that. Alejandro finds Rhea alone and asks her, what the hell she's doing alone. She explains her strategy, but Alejandro pushes back by saying that that's a stupid strategy, and if they lose, he could just as easily say that she didn't do shit during this challenge. So he's clearly fed up with Rhea, but he gives her one chance to contribute to the team. Rhea doesn't really have a choice, so she runs off with Alejandro to hunt the others down. Alejandro in confessional says, "I expected Rhea to be ruthless, not a coward like I just saw now." So Alejandro and Rhea find the girls, and they actually take out Zoe and Priya as well.
Can I just want to say that, this interaction with Alejandro and Rhea is... Alejandro tells Rhea to, stop pussying out, and he's like... They just have, unbelievable chemistry in the challenge. Yeah. They are, an absolute unit. Yeah. 40K.
Okay. So... Okay.
It would be kind of funny if every time they got hit, their voices just went helium high.
Yeah. After they're shot, Priya is all like, "Our boyfriends would have protected us. At least I know, mine would." And Zoe has a confessional where she's all like, what exactly is that supposed to be? And the Lions regroup, and they find Gwen alone. And they chase her down once she starts running. So they corner Gwen, and they eliminate her. But she smiles and lets them know that they should look around them. Alejandro, Cameron, and Rhea emerge from the bushes and ambush him and take him out all at once.
Yeah, one by one.
So this gives the Snakes the victory.
Yeah. Ultimately, the strategy to use Gwen as bait and then take advantage of the fact that the Roaring Lions, big 3 or 4 group got split apart, basically, and now they're disoriented. And then, like I said, Alejandro and Rhea are an absolute unit, and on top of that, they have Cameron for defense. And Cameron is a professional no-scoper. If you know from that one episode of All Stars where he hit the Gwen with the leech from like a most absurd angle of all time.
Angle 47 degrees, allowing for minimal wind resistance.
From an egregious angle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Cameron basically would tell Alejandro and Rhea exactly when and where to shoot and move, and they basically execute with perfect precision, like not a scratch on them.
Okay, so Alejandro reassures Rhea, saying that he knew the ruthless cold Rhea was still in there, and that he just needed to wrench it out of her. Rhea still feels a little bad about that, but shrugs it off with a smile, and once again just assumes her evil persona. Mwahaha. So she says in confessional that she can assume it just for a little bit longer, and then lay low. When it comes to the vote, Owen, James, and Mike, Caleb, and Sky vote for Beth.
Yeah. This is kind of a similar reason to Sean, because even though they didn't do anything to put a target on their back, this season is such like high stakes that they're really just weeding out the weakest links at this point.
Yeah, so Mike, Caleb, and Sky specifically did not get involved with like the Zoe Priya beef.
Yeah.
Because you could easily just as easily blame that. Duncan votes Mike simply to try and get rid of Mal. Beth, Zoe, and Miriam vote Priya, like just because of the drama that's going on, with Priya voting Zoe as well. Wayne votes Sky under the impression that she was the problem, even though she's like totally not. And it's a messy vote, but Priya narrowly like avoids elimination with like 5-3-1-1-1. So that's Beth.
Yeah.
Beth's out.
I think it's because Wayne voted for
Sky.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because he basically saw Sky like slam her hands on the table, be like, I can't take this shit anymore. Like after dealing with the Priya Zoe thing, and he's like, oh my god.
Yeah, she's like ruthless. Yeah, she's mean. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's so Beth is eliminated. Yep, you said. All right. Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah.
That's the wrong tier. No.
Priya, episode 4. So Priya realizes that she flew off the handle a little bit before the last elimination and considers herself lucky that Beth wasn't as popular as her. So she doesn't make any effort to make up with Zoe, though, which is probably not going to work out for her. Zoe and Mike discuss what happened the other night, and they agree to like draw a line. So Mike and Zoe will just steer clear of Priya, but shut her down when she gets crazy like that again.
Yeah.
Caleb warns Priya that she doesn't need to be bragging about him so much, and that he's happy with this like being a calmer relationship like they had before the season began. She doesn't really like listen that well though to that.
Okay, so Julia and Fiore have a scene where they begin to bond a little over shit talking their other teammates. Bowie walks in right when they're about to get to him, but then Julia very awkwardly stops herself. Fiore doesn't care, and she just keeps going, and then does the whole "he's right behind me, isn't he?" line. Bowie is upset, but doesn't hold it personally for too long, because, she is a child, so there's that. But he does warn Fiore that being a kid doesn't make her safe in the competition at all. Yeah, I was like, I may not take it personally, but, like, yeah, you're not in a great position. And that also makes Fiore really mad, because, she hates being held back because of her age and size. Gwen and Cameron sit to eat with Jake, and they bond over being the underdog heroes in their respective seasons. Gwen and Cameron empathize with his relationship issues, even though they have gotten a lot better now, like post Tom Jake. There's still a lot of like trust issues that he's dealing with.
Like Gwen definitely bringing up how nasty everything ended with Duncan and Courtney and All Stars. That was really bad.
Yeah. And yeah, they reassure him, saying that nice guys often do finish last, but not all of the time, as a reference to Rhea and Lightning winning instead of Jake and Cameron.
But they have friends, so they're like actually cool.
So compared to the last couple challenge, this one is a lot simpler. The contestants have to ride canoes over to Skull Island, a homage to Wawanaka's Boney Island. They collect gems from the island in the style of a pirate's treasure hunt, and then leave with their collected riches. The first team to reach the island in their canoes wins an advantage in the form of shovels to dig in the sand on the island for the next part of the challenge.
So it is about now that I feel like on either team it would be Cameron or maybe Mike and Zoe that start to realize, hey, a lot of these challenges seem to look a bit familiar, and the audience might have noticed this too. You know, like being you, the viewers. So they start putting together that each challenge so far is a mix of a challenge from a previous season. So let's go through that real quick. I threw these through a random number generator and just picked... I also just picked some challenges that I thought would be good fusions. So episode 1 was a mix of the first challenge from Disventure Camp, which was when they had to like slide down the hill on the logs, and a Wilderness Escape one where they were just like stranded in the woods and had to escape in Disventure Camp Season 2. Episode 2 was a mix of Revenge of the Island and Reboot Season 1, which is where they had to create airships and then like battle in the pirate ships. Episode 3 was a fusion of a Pakatu and Disventure Camp Season 2 challenge, where they had the balloon fight with like the darts and everything, but they also had like the surprise balloons in them. And then they realized this challenge is a mix of Island and something from Disventure Camp All-Stars, where they're going to Boney Island and back, but they're also doing some sort of treasure hunt.
Okay, so the Snakes have a much more strategic team at this point. I mean, you know, a lot of them are like past antagonists. But the Lions' teamwork does let them cooperate a lot better and row faster to the island. Because, you know, the main conflict was really just like the Priya Zoe Sky thing. But that not necessarily has been resolved, but it isn't an active problem on their team right now because they all are just kind of like distant from each other. So that allows their teamwork to be a lot more like thorough. Oh yeah, each contestant can only carry around 3 large items, seeing as how they weren't given bags or containers, so they all have to just lift it with their hands.
Yeah, they're like big ass gems. Yeah.
Yeah, big ass gems. Yeah, so they can only carry around 3 gems. They simply collect as many as they can and then return to the canoes to row all the way back. The Snakes do get into some interpersonal drama.
Some petty shit,
yeah. With Bowie clashing with Fiore a little bit more, specifically because, like, you know, this is a strength and running challenge with the gems and stuff, and Fiore is naturally just not going to be very good at it compared to everyone else, which causes her to shit talk Bowie more, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
And Ally Heather pesters Jake at Ria's request.
Yeah. For the most part, Zoe and Priya manage to ignore each other as a result of a silent pact between Mike, Caleb, and Sky to keep them apart until further notice. Sky has a confessional admitting it was her idea, and that even though she didn't want to get involved, she knew she had to keep the peace between them and keep things from getting worse on her team, because she does not want to risk losing a powerhouse like any of those 4 involved. Especially because I think she remembers how strong Sean and Jasmine were. They're basically the reason she didn't win in her season.
Yeah,
so she's like, now that I have 2 power couples on my team, I want to keep them for as long as possible.
Okay. The Snakes actually do manage to return to Dibiscoff first, but the Lions return with more gems in their canoes, and we'll go for the count. So this is how many gems each contestant collected. So Cameron and Rhea, this was just RNG, honestly, so cry about it. Cameron and Rhea collect 3. Gwen and Alejandro got 2. Lightning, Julia, and Jake each got 1. And Heather, Bowie, and Fiore didn't get any, so their total is 13.
Yeah. There are some reasons for the numbers, though, I will say.
Yeah, if you would like to, like, after I do the total. So Mike, Sky, Caleb, and James get 3 each. Duncan and Wayne get 2 each. And Owen gets none, and Priya, Miriam, and Zoe all get like 1 each, but that brings the total up to 19, which means they win this challenge.
Yeah, so the ones that get 3, it's pretty self-explanatory. Cameron, Rhea, and Alejandro are kind of like a big unit. Cameron's like the brains of coordination.
Yeah,
Alejandro
they did do like the whole ambushing thing at the end. Which
they are the reason their team won last challenge, and they continue to just work really well together. Heather is mostly delegated to pestering Jake and like keeping Rhea happy, while Alejandro is like the challenge doer, because that's kind of like a switch up of like what they're kind of known for. Mike, Sky, and Caleb, they're all like the power players. The only one that didn't is Zoe, because she's a little bit preoccupied with the Priya thing. And then the people who got 2 were just kind of like pretty good at the challenge, I guess, like James, Duncan, whatever. Lightning is really strong, but he's also dumb, kind of balances out, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so...
So the Snakes are up for elimination this time.
wait, what are the totals?
It was 13 and 19.
Okay, so the Roaring Lions got 19.
Yeah, they win.
They win, and the Snakes
So
are
the Snakes are up for elimination, and there are 3 immediately on the chopping block for collecting 0 gems, who are Heather, Bowie, and Fiore.
Yeah.
Heather, Alejandro, and Rhea are gunning for Bowie,
Yeah.
but Rhea tries to convince them to vote for Jake instead, and then Alejandro says that they have to save Heather first, and that they have nothing against Jake.
Right.
Rhea's confused, saying that Alejandro wanted her to be ruthless. Alejandro says, yes, ruthless, but not a fool.
Yeah.
So Bowie originally did agree to ally with Julia for the competition, but refuses to work with Fiore after her bad-mouthing. Julia tries to persuade him by saying it was all in good fun and that it was all in private, so nobody else heard it. Bowie just was like, oh, fine, and relents and agrees to vote for Heather along with them. And Lightning just individually votes out Fiore because he sees her as the weakest of the team.
Yeah.
So the votes are 4-3-3, and it's very close because Bowie and Heather are in the low, but it's Fiore, sadly,
Yeah.
who gets eliminated.
It was really just a matter of, like, teams of 3, and then Lightning was the deciding vote against Fiore.
Yeah. So, Fiore begins to blame Bowie for being a little bitch, but then Julia diffuses the situation before she can. And Julia takes the opportunity to suck up to Bowie a little bit, while also reassuring Fiore that she isn't so bad, and that she could take this loss in stride. And Fiore is ashamed to leave so early, empty-handed, but nods and just kind of sucks it up.
Yeah. Julia has a confessional admitting that she'll actually miss Fiore, and that she was almost like her little sister with the potential to be worse than she'll ever be. Yeah. She says that she and MK should invite her onto the whatever podcast.
Just like bring her on and then have her like call out Yule the entire time because you know they're gonna have him on again.
Yeah.
Dude, at this point, get over yourself is just like Yule is just a special guest all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's like they legitimately don't like each other.
Yeah.
But they're also both like in it for the
What
beef.
was it called in the epilogue of All Stars when Rhea was going through her Snapchat? Was it just like the Yule podcast or the Yule show or whatever? Is that what it was called?
It might have just been called
We'll
the
just
Yule
flash
Show.
something on the screen where he looks
Yeah.
like pathetic and everything. Yeah, with like the soda reviewing or whatever.
Yeah.
So Duncan soon has a confessional after that, after he avoids the guys on his team spending time with each other. So he hates how buddy most of the team is, but he finds entertainment in the Zoe Priya beef.
Yeah, Duncan wants to watch the world burn. Yeah.
So he wonders if he can actually take out 2 powerful players by making them destroy each other without him lifting much of a finger, but he doesn't elaborate further on that yet. Mike and Caleb meet with Sky to hash out how they're going to deal with their girlfriends fighting over something really stupid. They go around and ask the other teammates for their 2 cents. So James and Miriam are in agreement that the drama was started over something so stupid and that they should just drop it with no further discussion. Wayne is avoiding Sky, still under the impression that she's somehow the problem. So he defends Zoe and Priya's beef as team rivalry.
And Sky still has like no idea that Wayne thinks this and like doesn't really care.
So he's actually defending the beef, and then he's just like, yeah, that just happens in teams sometimes where there's a lot of headstrong people, and that's like pretty actually insightful coming from Wayne. So Mike, Caleb, and Sky actually appreciate that insight and decide to go about it from the angle of complimenting both of them and then showing them how similar they are.
Yeah. And then Wayne is like, I put my pants on backwards. And it's like, oh, okay.
They're
no.
like, I don't know.
It was a fluke.
Yeah. Last time it was my shirt.
So everyone is called to the next challenge, this one being a combination of a classic cliff dive and eating challenge. Now, multiple seasons have done this, so this is technically from Reboot Season 1 and Adventure Camp 2, but like nearly every season has like a big jump and a cliff dive and like an eating challenge, so I mean it's not... this one doesn't matter as much. So campers have a choice of jumping from a low, medium, or high cliff into the lake. This one is from Adventure Camp Season 2, which I know they took from Redonkulous Race, I think. So the higher they choose to jump from, the easier their eating challenge is going to be. So if they take the high dive, they get to eat a pretty decent like BLT sandwich. If they take the medium dive, they have to eat a bowl of old like bland gruel made by Chef a couple days ago. And if they take the easy low dive, they have to drink an entire large bowl of Chef's Surprise.
That was from Redonkulous Race, right?
No, this was from Disventure Camp Season 2, but like they also used it from Redonkulous Race because they reused like they reused like the Sleepathon challenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
If they take the easy low dive, they have to drink an entire large bowl of Chef's surprise stew. So not even Chef knows what's in it, and he just like throws whatever was in the fridge from a month ago into a pot and cooked it for a whole day. So anyone can go in whatever order they want, and all that matters is whatever team finishes their eating challenges first. So for the snakes, everybody decides to take the high dive except for Gwen and Jake and Cameron, who take the medium dive. So nobody takes the low dive on their team. So for the Lions, Mike, Zoe, Sky, Priya, and Caleb, and also Wayne and James all take the high dive. Duncan and Miriam, that's not Duncan. Duncan and Miriam take the medium dive, and Owen takes a low dive. Oh, no, Wayne's supposed to be with them. Yeah. Nobody has a problem with Owen deliberately wanting to try Chef's Surprise Stew, since they're like all confident he can just like tank it like a champ, he can chug it. So the snakes all go one by one pretty smoothly, but the Lions encounter a small hiccup. Zoe and Priya begin to argue over who should go first, pushing each other out of the way. And they actually push each other off the side of the cliff, both of them falling onto the middle cliff with an oof ow. Yeah. Caleb was halfway up through the climb and stops at the middle cliff to try and grab Priya, but Zoe and Priya push each other off onto the lowest cliff, and they both fall into the water. Chris is like laughing at their misfortune, while Don is trying to cut in and rule both of these dives as a low dive, since the last cliff they touched was the low cliff, and he sentences them both to eat Chef's surprise stew for the challenge.
Chef is like, now more people get to try the spicy.
Yeah, people go to die.
Yeah.
Oh, it's sweet. Oh, bitter. I don't know. I haven't tasted it. So, of course, Owen is doing just fine with this stew, and it's saying it's not too bad if you ignore the smell, aftertaste, tummy feel, and the heaviness in your stomach. Priya and Zoe stare daggers at each other, trying not to vomit everything up. So, of course, they fall behind, and they're unable to finish their stews while the snakes take the win. Pretty obviously. Yeah. Because they did bull rush through like the high dives.
All of them did the high dives except for the 3 that did the medium dives.
Yeah, and so they got to eat actual
really
food.
Fast, yeah.
So this lowers the morale for the Lions again, and most of them already know who their forced choices to vote are. So like Priya and Zoe are like pretty low on morale. So Priya is gonna be able to convince Owen and Wayne to vote for Zoe. Also under the assumption that Caleb is also voting for Zoe too. Zoe does the same with James and Miriam. Assuming Mike will vote Priya. So Duncan individually just votes for Miriam, not wanting these two out yet just for his own entertainment, so he effectively throws this vote. Yeah. But, I mean, he also views her as the weakest player, which he says in confessional during that vote. Interestingly, Sky, Caleb, and Mike agree not to vote for either Zoe or Priya in hopes of having them settle their differences. And it says Sky has the idea to vote for Duncan, who hasn't been much of a team player and could be a definite threat in the merge. Yeah. So this results in a 3-way tie between Zoe, Priya, and Duncan.
Yeah, because they all get 3 votes.
Yeah, so Zoe was voted for by Owen, Priya, and Wayne. Miriam was just voted for by Duncan. Duncan got Mike, Sky, and Caleb's vote, and Priya got Zoe, Miriam, and James's vote.
Yeah, so it's a 3-way.
It is a 3-way tie with Miriam just getting 1 vote. Oh, side tangent. Have we decided whether they're gonna give everybody marshmallows or just read out the votes? Is that important?
Not really, but I would say give them marshmallows.
Okay, yeah, just for the novelty. So Chris proposes a tiebreaker challenge, which is for the 3 of them to each eat another helping of Chef's Surprise Stew, with the last one out being eliminated. So Duncan actually does win this challenge because he's had much worse in prison, or at least just as bad. With Priya coming in second, since Zoe is on record not good for eating challenges. So she hangs her head in shame while staring daggers at Priya, and her commando side is almost coming out, ready to kill this bitch. So Chris stops them all, saying that as much as he'd love to see these 2 star athletes fight to the death, none of them are actually going home tonight. And he reveals that this episode is a non-elimination episode, but for their safety, they pay the price of their privacy. So Chris goes on to reveal who voted for who for the entire team, and this enrages Duncan, and also Zoe and Priya at their own boyfriends, and furthermore Sky for orchestrating something behind their backs. So Sky in confessional groans in frustration and wonders why relationships and crushes just like make people go insane, and then just gets flashbacks to Dave and shivers a little bit.
Yeah, she's like, I thought I was finished with this with Dave, but apparently not.
So nobody gets eliminated in this episode.
Yeah. And wait, Zoe lost the tiebreaker, right?
Yeah, she lost the tiebreaker, but
Yeah.
she's like still in the.
Bowie has a confessional observing the small drama between Alejandro and Rhea. And he rubs his hands together, seeing if he could use that to his advantage, because he knows that they are an unstoppable force, and quite frankly, that kind of scares him. He justifies himself with the fact that Alejandro and Rhea are worse than he is, and therefore it's not evil or conniving to bring them down below him, for the safety of, like, his other teammates. One thing I think is interesting is that I think he would mention Jake, like, he would say, like, oh, to protect Jake and the others, because that kind of, like, subtly shows that he has, like, an admiration for Jake, but, yeah. So Bowie approaches Heather, unable to resist gossiping, and asks her what she's going to do about all the time Alejandro's been spending with Rhea. Heather doesn't seem fazed, explaining that Alejandro's simply getting in Rhea's head for the game. She also pushes back against Bowie, saying that he should stop insinuating Alejandro is playing some sort of love game instead of a head game. Bowie brings up Alejandro's reputation for doing exactly that, specifically in World Tour, and then Heather storms off, unable to fire back against that, because they have grown a lot, but at the same time, like, they are just kind of back to, like, what they, this is the cycle. Anyway, Heather has a confessional screaming and calling Bowie a jerk. The Roaring Lions, after last episode, are now more divided than ever. There's new beef between everyone who voted for each different party. Duncan is incredibly hostile towards the previously neutral party. Duncan is now openly hostile to the Zoe Priya feud party, even though he was previously, like, kind of neutral and just wanted to keep them in. And also Miriam, because she also voted for him. Duncan storms off alone and yells out about how much of a drag his team is, and that once he makes the merge, he's ditching every one of them. Priya and Caleb... So, yeah, Priya, Caleb, Mike, and Zoe... Oh, yeah, Priya and Caleb, and then Mike and Zoe each talk separately about how last night was too close for comfort, and they have to make up as soon as possible for the good of the game. The cameras intercut between their very similar conversations. Priya back and forth. Priya confesses to Caleb that she hasn't felt the same ever since winning her last season and then losing her second. She feels a lack of purpose in herself now that she's somewhat seen as somewhat of a has-been. Zoe and Mike talk about how much Priya has been projecting insecurities onto her and how Zoe has been trying so hard not to let it affect her. Mike hugs her at the same time Caleb hugs Priya, and both boyfriends reassure their girlfriends that they're more than their insecurities, and that they'll be happy with them no matter what. Between both couples, both of them have either won or been a finalist, so they should be proud of that and not take that for granted anymore. As Caleb kisses Priya and lets her go, he spots what seems to be a special item in the bush. He shows Priya and they read it together, realizing it's a hidden advantage in the game that lets them choose one contestant from each team and have them switch. So, I will mention, the team swap item is not something that was mentioned before. This is because the host did not want contestants to focus on it. They wanted, as far as items go, they wanted them to focus on the immunity idol and then the half idols that they don't know what they do. Because they don't want people thinking like, oh, I'm going to focus on the team idol to get a swap. They want people to focus on, like, team building and then let the sabotage just kind of play out as it is, which is why they did not mention that item at all. Priya and Caleb just happened to find it.
The contestants are all called to the challenge area, which is filled with battlefield and war props and, strangely, dodgeballs. And they put together that this is the Dodgeball challenge from Island and the war movie from Action. So before the challenge is explained, Chris and Don reveal that an advantage has been found already, and that someone can either save it or use it right now before the challenge. Priya comes forward and presents it. The hosts confirm it's real, and she's asked who she wants to have switched. So Priya approaches Zoe and says that she's not as upset as she was now after talking to Caleb about it, but she feels that the space between them will leave them with lighter consciousnesses, and this will be there for
and this will be for the better. So Zoe's confused, but then comes to realize that Priya is choosing to send her to the other team. She's, of course, surprised and upset, more so because she'll be separated from Mike now. And Mike is upset too, but reassures Zoe that she has Cameron on the other team and that they'll all find each other in the merge. Priya is then asked who she wants to take from the other team, and she chooses Heather for a couple of reasons. So, first is because Heather has made it to the final 3 twice, and she's won a season already, and then she's one of the more strategic and seasoned players in the entire franchise's cast. That and she trusts her more like someone like Bowie or Alejandro. So Zoe and Heather officially swap teams.
So I want to, so because Priya is a huge total drama nerd, and by extension Disventure Camp because they're now in the same universe.
Yeah.
She would know like all of the contestants' stats and rankings.
Yeah.
Meaning that she would know that the only 3 contestants to make the final 3 twice are Zoe, Heather, and Rhea. Out of the 3 of them, one of them is Zoe. She wants to get rid of Zoe. That's the whole reason she's doing this. So obviously she's not picking her.
Yes.
And Rhea is insane. Even Priya knows that. So she decides that Heather is the best option because she's the most level-headed and also the most cutthroat. It's like a perfect balance.
Yeah. So this challenge is explained afterwards to be a simple dodgeball game, but set in the war movie from Action. So explosions will be set off via hidden mines in the dodgeball field randomly buried throughout. So if you get hit with the ball, you're out, but if you set off a mine, you're out. The Lions have to choose one person to sit out to make the game even, like choosing Noah. So they originally want Miriam to sit out, but she stands her ground and she refuses, and instead Mike actually chooses to sit out despite him being a strong player. He wants to process being separated from Zoe so suddenly, and he can't find it himself to trust Priya after that. Yeah, it's okay that I just put him there, right? Yeah. So he doesn't like he doesn't like want to trust Priya just yet after a move like that.
Yeah.
So during the challenge, Zoe and Cameron stick together and they talk in between rounds. So she's fine with working with Gwen and Jake from this point on, and appreciates her friend having her back through this. She also asks if she could take the swap, as if she should be taking the team swap as personally as she is, letting the thoughts get to her of like Priya basically saying she'd prefer Heather as a teammate.
Yeah.
So
That cuts deep.
Cameron says not to sweat it, and that Heather has been slipping away, so she's going to be less useful to them in the long run. Heather sticks close to Duncan, and she's trying to get his help in finding out what the hell Alejandro and Rhea are talking about without her there. And Duncan is disgusted by how obsessive she's being right off the bat, and tells her face to face that this is not the Heather that he knew. And if she's going to help them win, she needs to channel her bad bitch energy from way back when to Island and take no prisoners. So Heather in confessional says that even if it's Duncan's opinion, she doesn't disagree and is sort of proud of it. So just to speed things up, Owen, James, Gwen, Julia, and Jake are all out simply because I feel like they get ganged up on with either Duncan's juvie strat or Lightning just bull rushing the game, or they stepped on mines like idiots. The Lions realize that Lightning is the real threat of this game, but they have to work on getting the rest out since they're guarding him. So just as they're about to ambush Lightning with the million balls strat, Lightning grabs Rhea, who happened to be close to him at the time, and uses her as a meat shield. She's deemed out of the game from this. And this worries Alejandro, who runs to her to make sure she's alright. Rhea appreciates this, but Heather watches this unfold and gets super duper jealous. So Heather, in a rage, takes out Alejandro, but then she realizes what she just did as Alejandro glares at her afterwards. So a string of confessionals follows, with Bowie and Julia in a dual confessional gushing about the drama and how crazy this all is. Heather just screams and curses out both Alejandro and Rhea. And Cameron expresses relief that he wasn't closer to Lightning since he figured he'd use him instead.
Yeah.
Wayne actually is shocked that Lightning would stoop to such a low blow against his own teammate and loses a bit of respect for him as a result. Rhea just screams and curses out Lightning. Duncan simply laughs his ass off and says it's the best thing that's happened all game.
Yeah.
Priya actually says about Rhea, like, yeah, now you know how it feels, because she remembers that Ripper did the exact same thing to her.
Yeah.
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 So Lightning shakes off all responsibility for that, saying that it's purely a pecking order type thing in sports. So always use the weakest to your advantage. So he admits he would have preferred to use Cameron, though.
Yeah, and Cameron's like, I knew it!
Yeah. Miriam has the last confessional, shaking this off as kids being kids, and then she's almost glad she doesn't have grandkids quarreling like this.
Yeah.
So now that the game has drastically shifted in the Lions' favor, morale has never been higher for them. So Zoe lets out a bit of her anger to go commando to get a good shot in one of her former teammates, namely Duncan and Sky, who she thought were both her friends for a bit, but now she sees in a different light. So Duncan and Sky are out. She also takes out Priya, obviously.
Yeah.
Alongside her new team, doubling down and fueling the fire. So Priya snarls at her, calling her out, saying that was uncalled for. Mike and Caleb convince her to drop it for now. Zoe actually accidentally steps on mine, getting both her and Bowie out at the same time. Stupid.
You stupid.
Cameron and Miriam managed to just get each other out.
Yeah. It was like,
Yeah. And Cam has a confessional stating that for the record, they got each other out at the same time, so nobody can say who was weaker or stronger in that instance. Lightning gets Heather out via catching one of her balls, which causes everyone to slap their foreheads and remember that was a rule the whole time.
Yeah, Don is like, you guys know that, like, you could have done that the whole time, right?
Yeah.
And then Chef is like, yeah, we explicitly stated that at the beginning, and nobody listened to us.
No, but it's just that everyone was just so ready to go for blood.
Yeah.
So Lightning chooses to bring Alejandro back, but he's still pissed at him for hurting Rhea the way he did.
Yeah.
They gang up on Caleb, leaving Wayne the only one left on the Lions. So he blows up Lightning, saying that instead of the all-star athlete he claims he's nothing but a bully and a cheater. And Lightning espouses says, nah, I'm just the one who strikes first, like lightning! And thunder cunts a ball into Wayne's face, winning the game for the Snakes.
Yeah. So Lightning is the MVP of the Dodgeball Challenge. Surprise, surprise.
Alright, so, yeah.
Yeah, aside from Wayne feeling absolutely betrayed, Wayne also has a confessional being like, I'm starting to think that some athletes aren't very nice people.
Yeah. Lightning is a really bad guy. I love that word, thunder cunt.
Is that a real word?
And I mean, kind of, like, it's just, you just whip, like, you're like whipping an iron ball in your face, like, you know what I mean? And mock fuck.
At this point, Mike is pissed that Priya took it a step too far and, like, swapped Zoe off their team. Not only because they're dating, but because she's arguably a better player than Heather in team challenges. He rallies up most of the team to get rid of Priya. Caleb, on the other hand, sticks with Sky and Priya, telling Priya that she went a little too far, and that they should have gotten rid of Duncan instead. Priya, however, stands by her choice, saying that she chose to help herself first, and that if they got rid of Duncan, the Snakes would have another powerhouse on their team. Heather gathers Owen and Duncan, saying that if they want to keep their legacy as the OG players, they have to take charge and get someone new off the cast immediately. Owen feels a bit iffy about it, but Heather and Duncan effectively threaten him into voting with them. So we have Owen, Duncan, and Heather, the OG trio, vote off Caleb. Mike and Sky vote for Priya because, Mike is pissed and Sky is like, I'm not staying neutral anymore. Priya's clearly the bad guy here.
Miriam and James also vote Priya. We're doing the votes first and the explanations later.
No, you're right. You're right. Wait, you said... Wait, where's Miriam? Oh, they're at the bottom. Okay, I see. You went out of order. Yeah, Miriam and James vote for Priya. Priya, Wayne, and Caleb vote for Duncan. Mike and Sky vote for Priya. Okay, so it's 3 votes Caleb, 3 votes Duncan, 4 votes Priya. Yeah.
So Priya loses 4-3-3. She isn't as shocked that the others wanted her out for what she did. Duncan is actually surprised at how close it was between him, Priya, and Caleb. So he privately tells his new alliance that he figures that New Bloods must have had the same idea and tried to get him out for being the strongest one. Heather just rolls her eyes at that, and Owen starts shaking nervously, asking if he's one of the villains now. So they both tell him to shut up and stop blabbering. Owen in confessional says that he did want to become a more serious player, so he'll play along and let the villains think he's cool with them, just for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.